This is going to be a good filming session, I can tell already. Our heads are in the right places. You gotta get your head in the game. You gotta get your head in the game. Get my head in the game. Get your head in the game. Why am I feeling so wrong? My head's in the game, but my heart's in the song. Screw this video. It's just gonna be me singing High School Musical songs, apparently. Salutations! I'm Becca. This is Words Another Malarky, and I am back at it, baby. After a long November of vlogging and NaNoWriMoing, I am back to my normal schedule. We are back to our normal program. So, I am going to start things off by ending something, and that is to end the fall 2020. Okay. My fall 2020 reading. This autumn was a very good one. A lot happened personally and just in the whole booktube writer, sphere or whatever. I read a lot, kind of, more than the summer. I did way better in the autumn than I did in the summer, which is surprising because I feel like I was busier this past season. But oh well, it's fine. So I'm gonna go through what I read. So the first book I think I read is My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite. I did a video on this one. I don't need to say that much about it. It's short, it's very fast-paced, very vignette-y. That's a word, and it was good. I very much enjoyed it. The next one I read was actually an audiobook we listened to while on a road trip, and that was The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie, which was a fantastic choice for a road trip. It was almost like listening to a podcast, like a murder mystery podcast, but an actual crime novel, and we had a blast listening to it. I never read or listened to Agatha Christie before. I have watched Murder on the Orient Express, the movie version, but that was my only experience with Miss Christie, and honestly, I want more. I loved every minute of this audiobook. The voice actors were amazing, and the story was awesome, and I chose this one because I had looked up best Agatha Christie novels, and this was one of the top ones, so I was like, cool, might as well just dive right in with the best. I don't know if this counts, but in October I listened to another Hercule Poirot mystery called the Hallow'een Party, but it was the radio drama version, so it felt to me like they probably left out a lot of narrative. It was all dialogue, and after the fact I was like, I bet there was more description than what they gave. It was a fun one to listen to during the Halloween season, and I think I listened to it while getting ready for a Halloween party, so that was pretty cool. Alright, the other one I read in September, actually listened to, was Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. We got this on audiobook because the road trip was very long and I wanted more than one book. Daughter of Smoke and Bone was recommended to me by my local library along with a few other books, and I have a whole plan for that video once I get through the other books that they recommended, but this one looked like the most accessible one, so we got it on audiobook and listened to it on the road trip, and it was kind of a mistake. The story itself is okay. It's a YA urban fantasy. It's very much a product of its time, paranormal romance era, and it follows this girl named Carew, which is the weirdest name in existence, and she has been raised by these monsters called the Chimera, but they're nice monsters, and she runs errands for one of these monsters, but then she starts noticing that these portals that go between the human world and the monster world are getting destroyed, and learns that angels called the Seraphim are destroying the portals between worlds because there's apparently been this war going on between the Chimera and the Seraphim that she had no idea about. And then she meets this Seraphim boy and they fall in love, and it's fine. It's something else, man. I enjoyed the atmosphere of it. I enjoyed the Chimera, but listening to it on audiobook was so difficult and taxing sometimes because, first of all, the narrator elongated all the wrong words and would draw out these sentences on and put emphases on the wrong syllables, and her voices that she did for the characters were god awful. They were awful, and so I feel like it would have been a better experience if I had actually read it, because I didn't hate the characters themselves, even though Karoo I found annoying, and the Angel Boy I found really dull. But some of the other characters, I felt like I would have enjoyed them more had I not had this lady's terrible voice acting interpretation of them in my head. So I do want to continue the series, but probably not on audiobook. Another book I read in September, I believe, was A Song of Wraiths and Ruin by Roseanne A. Brown, which I did a video for already. So again, I won't go into too much detail about that one, but it was a very unique and well-crafted fantasy world, and the story was pretty good, and the characters were pretty good. I'm a big Malik fan, but Karina I wasn't a huge fan of, so, you know, I have my opinions, and I already talked about them, blah, blah, blah. But honestly, it is a solid fantasy novel, and it deserved much of the hype that it got. I also finished Kingdom Keepers 3: Disney in Shadow by Ridley Pearson, because as you know, I am slowly but surely making my way through this god-awful series. I already did a video on this one, blah, 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 blah. You can go check that out. It's fun time, lots of ranting, lots of frustration. So go watch that video at your own risk. Another book I read in October was Dead Mr. Mozart by Bernard Bastable, which is a pen name for Robert Barnard, who's like a crime writer. I'd never heard of him, but this book was gifted to me by my sister. She thought I would enjoy it, and yes, I did. Not as much as I thought I would. Okay, this was a good book. I really enjoyed Mozart as a character, because basically it's about, imagine a world where Mozart didn't die at like 35 and he like lived to a ripe old age, but he's just like living in London, like complaining about how he can't go back to Germany for some reason, and he's underappreciated now because he's basically old news, and he just happens to witness a murder basically and ends up helping to solve it, question mark, because what this book does well, in my opinion, is turns Mozart into a relatable character. I really enjoyed being inside his head, but the problem is there are a lot of music and music history related jokes that if you aren't a music nerd or didn't study music in school, they'd go right over your head. So fortunately, I am a music nerd, an orchestra nerd, and I know enough about Mozart, I know enough about this time period and about classical music in general to have gotten a lot of the jokes and enjoyed. So its strong point was the inside jokes and the attention to detail that musicians will appreciate. It was also very history focused, like it definitely drew on a lot of historical events of the time. I think it takes place in like the 1830s, but that part wasn't as interesting, and in the end the plot had less to do with music and more to do with like politics, and that kind of bothered me, because if you have all this like musical material to work with, why not make the murder more musically oriented? Really the only musical aspect of it was that the murder happened to take place in like an opera house. So I give it a solid 3 out of 5. I also read An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. Y'all already know about this one. If you haven't watched my positive rant review, go do that, because I said everything that I needed to say in that video. I absolutely adored this book. It was a breath of fresh air after some of the shit I've read this year, and it's like very whimsical fairy tale, you know. I won't go into detail. Go watch my video if you want to know the details, but it was very autumnal, perfect for the season, really helped round out the fall reads. I also read This Dark Endeavor by Kenneth Opel. This was part of a book haul that I got back in, gosh, I think like late summer or something, and it is a Frankenstein prequel. I feel like it came out around the time that they were trying to push Frankenstein as like the new paranormal monster to modernize and love, and it just didn't work. We got some like interesting Frankenstein retellings and then some really bad ones. So what happened with this book is I have a paperback copy, probably like the first edition, and it says on the inside cover, soon to be a motion picture from Summit Entertainment, the creators of Twilight. I think they thought this was going to be the next Twilight, and also here's why. Because Rick Riordan, renowned author of the Percy Jackson series, endorsed this book heavily and said that this book is going to be big. So they pushed the shit out of it, and it did not work. The movie never happened, and nobody's ever heard of this book or this series, but they thought it was going to take off because Rick Riordan said so. And it's sad because you know what? This book was really good. Kenneth Opel is a wonderful YA writer. He has a really rich way of describing setting, and he has a great hold on dialogue and characters, and I really enjoyed and was invested in these characters way more than I thought I was going to be, and it gave me a whole new appreciation for Frankenstein and for Victor Frankenstein as a mad scientist, because imagining him as a teenager and the sorts of things that would lead to him wanting to, reanimate life, it all made sense, and Opel did it with such a love and a respect for the source material that I really genuinely enjoyed it, but I honestly see why it didn't take off. It just doesn't have the zeitgeist that other paranormal topics do. People just don't care about Frankenstein. You read it in school, you watch a movie about it, you see it referenced in other movies. It's unfortunately just not as interesting in this day and age, but doesn't mean that it can't be later, and it doesn't mean that good content can't come out of it. And I definitely think that this Dark Endeavor adds to the mythos and doesn't take away. 4 out of 5, maybe? So I also had a Readsy review. That's the indie discovery platform that I do reviews for every now and then. And I read Amethyst by Jessie Nolan Bailey. And this was a really solid thriller. It's basically like a creepy cult town where like everybody worships this thing called the Amethyst. And this like very Ichabod Crane type guy comes, like this detective comes to try to solve a murder. He's employed by one of the villagers who's kind of skeptical about the whole thing. And so like it begins, this whole investigation. I really feel like it could have been more fleshed out, and I wanted more. It was very short, almost a novella. I thought the author could have done a lot more with the story and really dove into the world and into this like creepy village more, but it just kind of resolved really quickly and very strangely. So it was a good read though, and very appropriate for the season. I also read Sorrow by Tiffany D. Bartolo. This was an ARC review that I was asked to do, and I don't take every book that comes my way, but this one looked really interesting. It's basically about this guy who, he's like a guitar prodigy, but he missed out on his chance to become a famous musician and just kind of like self-sabotages himself by never living up to his potential. But then he takes this job with like this artist lady and falls in love with her, and there's all this like interpersonal drama. It's very much like when you think of novel, this is like novel. It's very contemporary, but it was actually way more enjoyable than I thought. Like I enjoyed the writing style. I think she did a great job capturing this like, I think like it was like a coastal Northern Californian town, and I really thought that it was a well-crafted, well-thought-out story. It incorporated a lot of music and art and philosophy stuff. It wasn't too pretentious. It had its moments. And like, even though the main character was insufferable sometimes, he has a pretty good arc, and I enjoyed him in the end, especially when he got a very well-deserved kick in the rear. So, it's a good one. Last but not least was Stardust by Neil Gaiman. I still don't know how to pronounce his stupid name. You might be familiar with the movie. I've seen the movie like 5 times. I watched the movie while reading this book instead of waiting until I'd read the book to rewatch the movie, which I probably didn't matter that much in the long run. But here's what I have to say. Now, Stardust was a enjoyable read. It was very, old-timey fairy tale, almost Tolkien-esque, not as wordy, but like, adventure and quirkiness and weird characters and all that stuff. But I was very underwhelmed by it. I thought it was going to be way better than it was. And this is just personally, and my sisters read it before I did, so they gave me their 2 cents. But of course, like, I kept that in mind, like, when you go in already with a preconceived notion, then that might taint your opinion a little bit. But I tried to keep an open mind. And honestly, like, I appreciate the book. I see what it's done. It did a lot of things really well. But I do not see why it is as renowned as it is. And honestly, in my opinion, the movie is better. And it's difficult to say that because, the movie has flaws. It's corny and over the top, and some of the things that happened, some of the decisions that were made story-wise are like, what the hell did I just watch? But the movie does something really impressive in that it takes this story that on its own in its raw form would not have adapted well to the big screen and turned it into something really watchable and really accessible without taking away from the main plot points of the story. Honestly, in my opinion, almost everything they changed from book to movie, they changed for the better. And I honestly really want to do a whole video on this someday, breaking down the differences between the book and the movie and why the changes they made to the movie were for the better. So I feel really like I'm speaking above my station critiquing a book by an author as renowned as Neil Gaiman, but once a book is out there, it's all about the reader, I'm very much pro death to the author in most cases. So that is what I read in fall of 2020, the year of our Lord 2020, which is almost over. Can you guys believe it? Next video will be my winter 2020 TBR, which I'm very, very excited about. But until then, keep it weird, of course, as per usual, and let me know down below what you read this fall. Let me know what your favorite book was, your least favorite book, anything. And remember to like, comment, and subscribe, all that good stuff, because you know how YouTube works and all that crap. So yeah, alright, bye.